Hi there guys, how's it going? So the new Namine medal has been out in our version of the game for a few hours now. I actually did one pull for it myself, so I'm going to cut in and go blah 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 blah. I don't know if I should pull. Well, I've made the decision to pull now. Okay, I'm pulling now. Oh, Moogle pedal. Oh, moogly moogly moogly. Oh, it's a 7-star upright. Oh my god, that was unexpected. It could be crap. That's probably not going to be the Namine that I want. Oh, lots of premiums. Oh, no Namine. That's okay, we got Aventus, that's a tier 5 guaranteed with, defense boost 1 max. Oh well, what about the other medals? Look, here's the one guaranteed we were going to get. And look, it's Pluto, fantastic. And I totally noticed the Xemnas was there as well. There, I just did a pull for it. You can see I was not successful unfortunately, but oh well, that's fine. I thought I'd go ahead and talk about it and thinking, do I actually want to go ahead and try and chase this thing? Given that it's a non-mercy medal with a brand new unique mechanic added into the game, typically they have a really low rate of dropping and it's unlikely to go ahead and pick this thing up. I don't particularly want the Riku and Roxas medal that's attached to it, so my answer right now is no. If I did want to go ahead and mercy pull that medal and have that Namine be a bonus, that would be one thing, but I don't particularly need that Riku and Roxas medal when I have a sort of pseudo version of it sitting right there. If it was the Roxas and Shion medal, for example, where I don't really have anything on the reverse speed side and I was going to pull for it anyway, that might be different. So I'm going to go ahead and wait for a banner. Personally, I'm hoping that this medal returns in a more friendly to get form, maybe a mercy pull sometime in the future, or maybe even a better version of this medal, potentially even a medal that's a reverse version of this medal. Given that Namine right now only buffs the upright attribute, potentially there's a chance that we might get a reverse version of this medal dropping soon. In any case, I don't think anyone should be rushing out and grabbing this thing right now, given that it's a 2-week banner. JP anniversary is coming pretty soon. There's no real reason to go ahead and pick this thing up right now, like rush out and spend all your jewels trying to get it. There could be a high score challenge next month that has, in a few weeks that features it. We don't know. Until then, there's no reason to go rush out and spend all your jewels. Anyway, with all that being said, if you do want to go ahead and pull for it, what might you use it for? Me, I'm thinking that the best way of using it is, of course, copying a single or random target medal, especially one that's 7 stars like this. If you go ahead and copy one of these, well, you're not copying, alright, so rather you have the medal that you want to turn into an all-target medal, and you put Namine right before it. So in my case right here, I'm looking at this Fairy Star setup, which I use for almost everything. I would go ahead and potentially put Namine right there. Namine herself, if you're looking at her own damage output, as we saw yesterday, she deals at 6 stars and 230% guild, roughly 500,000 damage. We know that it isn't heaps, but for a buffer it isn't too bad. My thought process was, okay, if we go ahead and use her, are we potentially losing a little bit of damage by, like in my case right here, I've got the 6-star Riku that copies backwards that Sora medal. It does a pretty decent amount of damage, even in high-level Colosseum content, which of course is where you want to use this. You want to use this medal in either, well, anywhere with multiple targets. So PvP, it's not useless, but it's definitely not useful. I mean, apart from its buffs, I suppose. You want to use it in potentially raiding against an enemy with multiple parts. You want to potentially use it in like high-level Colosseum content, in potentially Organization 13 events in the future, which feature not only the Organization member, but also like surrounding weaker Heartless, all sorts of PvE applications. So potentially you want to use it there. I'm thinking, okay, well this is copying, right now in my case, it's copying backwards an all-target medal, and it does a pretty substantial amount of damage, so I thought, well, why don't we test it? Alrighty, let's do some testing, shall we? So I'm going to go ahead and load up the Colosseum where I'm currently at, so against level 2,300-ish enemies, so, pretty decently high up there. I'm testing this because this is probably the kind of content that I would most want to have that Namine medal for high-level Colosseum stuff. So let's go ahead and take a peek at this mob of enemies right here. So we're going to take a look at the damage done in the 4th slot by that Riku that I pointed out before on my Fairy Stars. If you're not following exactly what I'm doing, don't worry, I'll explain it a little bit more as we go on. So dealing damage with my 3rd medal right here, and then I'm going to copy backwards, paying attention to how much damage I do with the 6-star copycat medal. So to each enemy, it did slightly different amounts, but we can average it out at roughly 1.8 million. So I'm going to go ahead on my little spreadsheet here and say that I did roughly 1.8 million, and because there was 4 hits, it's going to do roughly 7.2 million damage. So to each of the enemies there, so the average damage per enemy there was 7.2 million. That makes sense. Okay, let's take a look at how much damage each hit of Illustrated Diz here does. So we're getting 9.2 million on the grounded enemy, and because this medal has a negative aerial on it, we're getting, was it 14-ish million on the aerial enemy, because again, negative aerial. Oh, and also for the fact that it's a magic medal, weak to Diz. Okay. So, Diz did 4 hits, and let's just say, I don't know, let's say like 11 million, just to make it easy on ourselves, for calculations purposes. Alrighty, so it did an overall damage output of 44 million to 2 enemies, so the average amount of damage per enemy there was roughly 22 million. So, in 2 medals time, we output roughly 29.2 million damage, okay? If we consider, right, that we would have been hitting that, let's say 44 million, and again, that's not what it would have actually been, because we would have hit far harder. Like, we would have hit 60 million on the bell, and, what did I say, 9 million, so about 40 million on the little spear guy, I forget his name. We would have hit way harder, like way more damage output, if we'd used Namine first. Let's consider that, okay. Average damage per enemy here, if we take the 500,000 Namine does to one enemy and divide it by 2, let's just say 250,000 damage average per enemy there. And then we consider here, we would have dealt, again, let's just average it out at 11 million per hit. I know that's not exactly right, but we would have dealt 44 million damage average per enemy right there. So you can see a hell of a lot more damage was dealt, theoretically, by using Namine. And that, again, that was only against a 6-star medal, so that was a 6-star medal copying backwards against 2 enemies right there. Consider then if we increase the amount of enemies. So let's increase the amount of enemies. Well, if you want to compare really quickly, if we use Namine instead, we would have done an overall damage output of about 15 million damage higher by using Namine into Diz. What if we consider that, okay, there was a pack of, you know, 2 enemies there. What if it was like, you know, 4 or 5? Let's do 4. We can see that the average amount of damage we're dealing, because like it's a random target medal and it's obviously only hitting 1 hit for every 4 enemies, like on average, for example, the amount of average damage per enemy that we're doing falls far, far lower, where that consistent 44 million damage to every single enemy stays consistent no matter how many enemies are out there. So obviously the more enemies you add, the less impressive those 2 stats there together look, but that one over there stays the same. So again, this is only for a 6-star copycat medal. Potentially if you had like a 7-star Riku copying backwards, your damage output might look a lot higher than mine, and so it'll be up to you to make that judgment call. Do you want to go ahead and lower your overall damage output to potentially increase your 7-star output? I encourage you to test it for yourself. So what I'm considering then is, if we go ahead and use a medal like Fairy Stars, like this for example, which has really, really powerful slots that get more and more powerful the further you go into the Keyblade. That is the case for almost all the Keyblades, but there are a couple, like Olympia here for example, and also Divine Rose. These Keyblades right here have a really sort of strange property where slot 4 is the most powerful slot, and actually gets a little bit weaker on slot 5. So my idea was, well, people don't typically use these Keyblades anyway a lot of the time, just because the slot is kind of weird. What if you were to put Namine on slot 5 here, for example? Or this Keyblade right here. And then your Spirit slot became a really, really powerful medal. Really, really powerful AoE medal. You'd be taking a little bit less of a hit because, again, you're only dealing 500,000 damage, let's say. But you probably weren't going to use this Keyblade anyway because this slot was kind of weak. Maybe you could just have a really, really powerful, you know, slot 4, and then a semi-powerful slot 5, well, not very powerful slot 5, but a really, really powerful slot 6. Maybe just an idea of how to use the medal. So if you guys want to do some testing on your own, like especially if you have Namine, like again, I tried once to get her. I'm not going to chase her to keep doing testing. I'm going to hope she comes as a Mercy so I can experiment that way. I know Roboloid did a little bit of testing and found out the different properties, like what happens if you use Namine and then use a copycat medal. Really, really interesting stuff. So I might link his little infographic in the description. It's really, really cool to check that out. Shout out to him. He does a lot of fantastic work for the community. If you guys have any ideas of how to use Namine or anything I haven't thought of, definitely let me know. I'm really wanting to check this thing out. This has been like the most cursed video I've ever tried to make. I've had literally nothing go right for it. I don't know what the hell it is about this video, but anyway, if you notice that I changed outfits, it's because I just was like, fuck it, I've got to go to dinner. So I went to dinner, came back, and now I'm trying again. I don't know what the hell is wrong with this video, but anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching again. I'll see you soon. Well, probably won't see you for a couple of days because I've got lots of work, but I'll see you when I get back. All the best. Thank you. Bye.